Hello, my little Luxes. Welcome back to another episode of Charsie Chats, and I am your host, cosplayer Charsie Lux. And today I am dressed for cosplay that is inspired by Sylvia's character from the film Monstrous, because I just did a movie review for the 2020 film Monstrous. Not to be confused with the recent one that came out for Monstrous 2022, I believe, with Christina Ricci. So I haven't seen that one. So don't get confused with which one I am talking about, I guess, considering how back to back they were. But I mean, it's kind of one of those old sayings that between movies and books and songs, you can have a lot of repeat names. That's why it's so hard, especially for like companies and that, where it's like you have to get trademarks for certain names and things, and that some companies can all have the exact same name themselves, where, well, it just depends on the company. Like, let's say a cosmetic company comes out and wants to be called the Red Rose. Now, let's say a sleepwear company decides to come out and they also want the name The Red Rose. They each individually can trademark it because they are not in the marketing for the exact same thing. But let's say a third party comes in wanting to use the name Red Rose, but they are a clothing line, and the problem is that the other company that was all sleepwear and that is too closely tied to being clotheswear. So that new company that came in trying to be called the Red Rose wouldn't be able to trademark it because they are also in a clothing line field. So it just a little bit of backstory and history for that. I'm learning a lot when it comes to trademarking and things like that, not only for the fact that in a business sense that if down the road I want to start trademarking certain names and certain things, making an LLC for myself as a company, obviously doing investigations and finding it out. Now, at the same time, I also have the realization that I have certain names and things that I have that somebody else couldn't just come in and start, like, go and buy a trademark for Charsie Lux, let's just say, like, my actual cosplay name and that. The fact that I have countless photos, I have countless videos and podcasts with me using my cosplayer name, Charsie Lux. Even if somebody tries to come in and buy that trademark for Charsie Lux, they wouldn't be able to, that I'd be able to take them to court and I'd be able to fight it due to the fact that it's kind of like an unwritten copy mark type idea, especially on my photographs when I do the watermarks on them. I have copyright Charsie Lux with the years. So the year's more for myself so that I can kind of track back when a certain photo or photo shoot had happened. But yeah, just kind of a little bit of history on that. I guess I kind of bring that up with the fact that, sorry, my hyperhidrosis is really acting up today. It's weird. It's super cold. Like, we went from beautiful, wonderful 80-degree weather to we just dropped down into the 50s and had to turn on the heater already. And thank goodness that me and my husband decided to turn it on early, because we had noticed that during the nighttime, it was going to drop down in the 30s, and that's getting close to freezing point. Obviously, we wanted to turn on the heater to make sure it was running correctly, and thank goodness we did, because sure enough, our heater was not working. Like, it would click on, and it would run for like 30 seconds, and then just instantly turn off, and there was no heat kicking out of it. Luckily, it was just a simple thing, and that it was just the pilot light. Now, we do not light our own pilot lights, and we don't do anything like that. I've never been trained for something like that. So had somebody maintenance to come out and take a look at it just to make sure it wasn't anything else. Plus, it's been a while since that thing has been maintenance. So it was just good to have somebody to come out, and it runs better and smoother. So he was doing enough on it that it runs better. Anyway, but back on topic. What was I saying before? Now my brain, see, this is what happens when I just go from one subject to the next. Oh yeah, I was talking about my hands. So even though it is miserably cold for me, I don't like cold. I like 80-degree weather and warm and hot and sunny. I'm the opposite of a vampire at this point. I used to be like everything about the nighttime, no sunshine, and then that kind of flipped. I don't know. Opinions can change at any point in time. And it just was one of those things where I'm miserably cold, but my hands are still sweating. So, not only that, being cold, I'm even more cold and literally shivering. So, got to deal with my lovely hyperhidrosis and that. All right. I had to go back and kind of rewatch my video to remember what I was about to transition into. And then I confused myself by talking about my hyperhidrosis and the heater and the weather. So, talking about the trademark and everything, it kind of brings up the idea that, well, I've already talked about the fact that one of my favorite pastimes is I love listening to videos or podcasts that kind of do commentary on drama videos, kind of pulp culture, but I also get a lot into the beauty gurus that are for YouTube because I started doing like watching makeup tutorials and everything on YouTube, and it spanned into the regulars that I was watching. Well, then you started getting into the points where you had Dramageddon 1 and Dramageddon 2, Dramageddon 3, where they were all talking about this beauty space and just the fighting and bickering that was happening among people who were at one point in time friends, where they now despise each other, and the drama that kind of happened behind the scenes. One of the influencers or beauty influencers that is pretty well known is Jaclyn Hill. And she has her own makeup line, or at least she would tell people that she was the CEO of the company and that she was the one that owned it and that. And then behind the scenes and everything, it's slowly been leaking out that Forma Brands was the one that owned Jaclyn Hill Cosmetics. So it's just little things that over time people have realized that the person that they thought Jaclyn Hill was actually was just a facade. That maybe when she first started on YouTube and that, she was this really honest person and that. And unfortunately, money changes people. So she could be the perfect example of showing that. She actually grew up not far from where I grew up. I think it was Schaumburg, Illinois. So where the Woodbine, is it Woodbine? I will put it in here for words, but I'm pretty sure it's Woodbine, the Woodbine Mall. But that was one of the things is that she grew up in that area talking about the fact that she didn't have anything and she worked at the MAC Cosmetics store. And there's just certain stories and things that are coming out where people are like, the things that she is saying now doesn't line up. Well, one of the things that she's been heavily ridiculed for was the fact that she's been lying that she owns this Jaclyn Hill cosmetic brand when Forma brand, who was also Morphe, when Morphe and Forma went bankrupt and had to sell the company, that's when all the documentation and everything came out, and it shows that Jaclyn Hill is just the name of the brand, that she's not the CEO, she doesn't own anything of it. She just gets paid basically for the name right of it. She's the face of it. But where the trademark thing comes into play, because I had brought up trademarks, she had actually started two other brands or two other shops, but she obviously started being makeup tutorials, a beauty guru, doing makeup reviews and things like that. It made sense for her to have the Jaclyn Hill Cosmetics. Well, she started her own jewelry line, which was Roxanne, and then she decided to open up a sleepwear type of store. She decided to name it Koze. Well, she wanted to find a name that wasn't trademarked, So they came across Koze, saw that it was an open trademark, so they just took it. Unbeknownst to her, supposedly, there was already another YouTuber influencer who already had that and was using that for very similar items that Jaclyn Hill was going to be selling on her Koze brand. And this one was all things Koze, or Koze, but spelled the same way, Koze. But Jaclyn was using it and saying cozy. Hello, I am just jumping in real quick to do a quick saying of I apologize. I kept calling Kalyn Caitlin, but her name is Kalyn. So please forgive me for throughout the rest of this video that I am mispronouncing her name and saying that she is Caitlin, but I am speaking about Kalyn. This was Caitlin. She was the one that owned the Koze brand, had actually noticed what was going on and had instantly reached out to Jaclyn Hill on social media. So other people could see it, so it brought up the story and she was very, very professional in her way of approaching it, saying, hey, did you think about maybe changing your name? She goes, I already have that as my brand name, and she already knew that with somebody like Jaclyn Hill using her Koze name, that if anybody would try to Google search it, as of at that time, it would bring up Caitlyn's store. But she knew with a Jaclyn Hill name that her store would just disappear. Well, sure enough, Jaclyn Hill ignored Caitlyn, then even started to proceed to mock her online and was doing little stories and showing that she was trademarking the name Koze. Whereas behind the scenes, she never once actually went through and trademarked the name Koze or Koze. Caitlyn instantly saw that over time, as she was releasing products on this Koze name, that unfortunately Caitlyn's Koze, that if you went to do a Google search or just find it anywhere, it would instantly pull up Jaclyn Hill's brand. So she knew instantly what was going to happen, and that with the following that Jaclyn Hill had, exactly what happened that she was afraid about did happen. And Jaclyn Hill was being very shady behind the scenes with everything, and that she's even started mocking Caitlyn about it. And later on, she tried to come out and deny and say that her and her team didn't realize what had happened right away, and that they were excited because it finally was a way to spell cozy and that nobody else was using and it wasn't trademarked. Well, you can't say that nobody else was using because Caitlyn was clearly using the Koze spelling for her Koze brand, and it was very similar merchandise to what Jaclyn Hill was selling in her Koze brand. She came out in a video and even tried to say, like, oh, well, she didn't trademark it, so it's really on her. And, well, she actually was doing a makeup tutorial, kind of like letting people know that what was going on with her brands and that. And she picked up a brush and then she read off the name and then saw the TM at the end. And she goes, well, at least they trademarked it. So it's like, she's throwing shade at Caitlyn, basically trying to state that, well, you didn't trademark it, so it's your fault. Even Caitlyn, as she realizes it, she's like, yeah, shame on me. I surely trademarked it and everything. There's been other stuff that's been coming out where even certain brands that do have a trademark item, Jaclyn Hill, especially when she was in Morphe and that, had taken and stolen a trademark named item and had done the exact same thing and used it. And this woman, she had a special specific sponge brush for putting on foundations that was called the Master Brush. And Jaclyn and Morphe did the same thing. And this woman tried to explain to them, like, hey, this is my product. This is my trademark. And they still ignored her and continued to sell the product anyway. So she's very shady behind the scenes. Having something trademarked doesn't guarantee that you're going to be 100% safe. But a lot of people had come forward to tell Caitlyn when she made the decision. She's like, I'm just going to let it go. And she's like, I'm just going to rebrand and rename myself. And she did. And she went through this whole process of renaming and rebranding at the same time while she was pregnant and going through a pregnancy and having a baby. She had to go through all this rebranding, which means all of her old merchandise she had to change for the rebrand. Well, obviously, Jaclyn Hill, with all of her shadiness in this and people being upset with her and the fact that she's trying to claim that, nothing wrong is happening behind the scenes, come to find out, she's not selling the merchandise the way that she was hoping. So she is already within a year or two of having this Koze brand. She's already going to be closing it out. So poor Caitlyn, who had to close her All Things Koze and rebrand the name, lost it for a person who had no investment in her product, and because it was failing, just decided she was going to close it. And it's like, are you freaking kidding me? And then Jaclyn Hill came out with a video to talk about the closing of the brand. And she finally touches on the point where she's like, there was a smaller Canadian influencer who had the same name, and that when we realized what had happened, we tried reaching out to her in email, but she never responded. And Caitlyn, of course, responded very professionally, basically stating that, well, she never received such an email. But it's also the fact that Jaclyn couldn't even say Caitlyn's name. And it's just one of those things where it's like, so you essentially mock this poor woman because she didn't trademark a name, you stole the name, used and sold products, and then because it ended up failing because everybody was upset with you and how you were handling the scene and handling the situation, now this poor woman who had to rebrand her stuff, I mean, she's going to keep her rebrand and everything, but it's a lot of people had gone and told Caitlyn that it's like, you have been doing videos and had merchandise in this Koze name, that just because she didn't trademark it, it still kind of becomes like a poor man's copyright type of idea. That the name technically was still hers, so she could technically take Jaclyn Hill to court. But it's at the same time, it's like most people don't have the type of extra funds and money to just be like, okay, I'm going to take you to court. I'm going to sue you over this. And it's just, so she just let it go. She became the bigger person. And it was one of those things when Peter Mon was talking about the situation and that, because he talks about Jaclyn Hill a lot and the fact that she doesn't properly disclose affiliate links and things like that, where she can get in a lot of trouble. When he was talking about the situation with Caitlyn and that she rebranded Koze, he's got friends in his life that basically tell him that if somebody steals your idea, it's because they don't have an original thought in their own brain. So they have to steal ideas from other people. And in the long run, you can make the decision to either fight them or you can just let it go and give it to them. Because if you're already a creative mind, you can expand and you can find something that's even better than what you had before. Use it as motivation to move on and to do better things. And that person that's stealing your content, your name, essentially, they're not going to have much of anything because they're stealing an idea. And Jaclyn Hill, she pretends like it's not affecting her, but the fact that she's already closing her brand, it hasn't even been open a couple years, and she already has to close it because it's unsuccessful. It's because people can tell when you're being shady behind the scenes, or even in front of the scenes. I mean, she's always mocking things in people's faces, especially on Instagram stories and things like that. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to bring it up. And it's like, these are those weird things where it's like my brain starts thinking, and it's like, dear God, is this what the business world is going to be like? Is that, well, it's that dog eat dog world type idea. I just wanted to bring it up, see if any of you had heard the situation, which I highly doubt it. especially if you're a part of my horror crew and you love horror movies and ghost stories and that. I highly doubt you know anything about this situation. But because of the fact that I love makeup and with cosplay and doing the cosplay makeup, I would watch a lot of makeup tutorials, especially for like FX makeup and things like that. I love listening to the commentary channels when they discuss these deeper situations. And the fact that it's like, okay, these are things to have in the back of my mind to watch out for people that are like this. And if a situation like this ever comes up, it's like, what in your mind would make you stop and think, like, how much would you want to fight for a trademark or for a name? It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. But yeah, if you could also go and support Caitlyn and join her new rebrand. I always have to look at it because I'm so used to all things Koze for obvious reasons. But it's Caitlyn's Coffee Talks and Flows. And she talks a lot about meditation, having good mental health, and just namaste type of environment and very peaceful. So yeah, definitely go show her some love and support, especially since she had to go through this whole awful ordeal and do a complete rebrand that she shouldn't have even had to do. And even proving to myself, like, I went and was looking up so that I could remind myself the rebrand name for everything. And it immediately, like, even typing in all things Koze, it still took me to Jaclyn Hill's Koze first. And that's exactly why Caitlyn rebranded, was because of that. But yeah, oh my god. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, just kind of like talk about it. It's just one of those things where it's been on my mind, and it's been on my mind for quite some time, and it's like, why are people like this? And obviously this is why my brain is always in like hyperdrive of always, I don't want to say I distrust people, but it's like I'm trying to always have an open heart, open mind. It's just always reminding myself that yes, there are unfortunately shady people like that out there. But yeah, so share your thoughts with me and let me know what you think of the whole situation. And obviously, I know this is not my usual content, and well, maybe I will start talking a little bit more about some of these topics and situations. Although I already know that if talking about Jaclyn Hill, I'm opening the door for all of her stands to basically come in and harass me, but hey, what's new in this world? But anyway, thank you so much for joining me here on another Charsie Chats. And if you would like to follow me on my other social medias, please come follow me on my Twitter or Blue Sky for Charsie Lux with 3 X's. Or come join me on my Instagram or Threads. That's the other one. Or my Threads for Charsie87. And I will eventually be talking about the annoyance of having to have so many social medias and blah, blah, blah. We'll eventually get into that. But also remember, I am the afterlife of the party, and I would love for you to come join me in the afterlife of the party. And always remember to slay, subscribe, like, and always be yourself. Because in the end, all we have is ourselves. Until next time, my little Luxes, and I did it again. Need to also remember, please come follow me and be a member on my Patreon. Your love and support will greatly help me to continue growing as a cosplayer and a storyteller. So, until next time, my little Luxes, I hope you have a luxxycharms. Good day. Bye.